Welcome, dear listener, to a world of crooked streets, flickering lanterns, and whispers carried on the damp sea air. Ketterdam, jewel of international trade, city of smoke and shadows, a place where fortunes are made in a breath and lives are lost in a blink. Here, ships from every nation crowd the harbors, sails snapping in the wind like the wings of restless birds. Merchants shout their wares, street gangs stalk alleyways, and every corner smells of brine, spice, and danger. But beneath the chaos, something darker stirs. Whispers travel faster than coin. There is talk of a new drug, something terrifying, something that could shatter the balance of the world. Parem, a substance that turns Grisha powers into weapons beyond imagination, burning them out even as it grants them miracles. In the wrong hands, it could topple nations. And in Ketterdam, everything always finds its way into the wrong hands. Amid the city's grime and grandeur moves a boy they call Dirty Hands. Kaz Brekker, 17, dressed in black, like morning itself, and walking with a crow's-headed cane that clicks against the cobblestones in a rhythm that makes men shiver. He is not the strongest, not the fastest, but in Ketterdam, brains carve deeper than blades. And Kaz has the kind of mind that sees doors where others see walls. He has clawed his way from nothing, leaving behind blood and bones, building a reputation for ruthless precision. He smiles rarely, but when he does, men back away. Tonight the air feels heavier. A summons has come, not from some street boss, but from one of the great powers of the city. Jan van Eck, a merchant with coffers deeper than the sea and ambitions sharper than a knife. He wants Kaz. Not for intimidation, not for debt collecting, but for a job so insane it might as well be a death sentence. Kaz makes his way through the barrel's labyrinth, shadows leaning toward him like they know their master. The slat rises before him, the heart of the Dregs gang, its lamps glowing with a sickly warmth. Inside, cards shuffle, dice roll, and fortunes crumble with each turn of the hand. He moves past gamblers and drunks, ignoring the calls, the jeers, the hungry stares. He is focused only on the meeting ahead. When Van Eck lays out the plan, the room chills. In the frozen northern fortress of Fjerda lies a prisoner, a scientist named Boyul Bayur, the creator of Parem. Locked in the ice court, guarded by soldiers who would slaughter Grisha without hesitation, the man is unreachable. Or so everyone believes. Van Eck wants Kaz to do the impossible. Break into the ice court, extract the scientist, and bring him back alive. The reward? 30 million Krug. Enough to buy armies, to reshape the barrel, to burn down the past and build something new. Enough to tempt anyone, but Kaz doesn't care for temptation. He calculates, risks, losses, gains. Beneath his gloved hands, he already feels the strings of a plan weaving together. This isn't just about money. This is about leverage, about reputation, about revenge. Always revenge. But even Kaz Brekker, the boy who survived drowning in his own city, knows one thing. He cannot do this alone. The ice court will demand more than a clever mind and a sharp cane. It will demand a crew. Thieves, killers, liars, and saints. The kind of people desperate enough, skilled enough, broken enough to gamble their lives for a prize they'll probably never see. And so, the story begins. The crows are gathering, though they do not yet know it. Each carries a secret, each hides a wound. Some chase freedom, some chase redemption, and some chase nothing at all. Only the chance to keep breathing another day. In Ketterdam's choking fog, where dreams are bought and sold, Kaz Brekker lifts his eyes toward the impossible. A fortress of ice, a secret that could shatter the world, and a chance to etch his name in legend. His fingers tighten on his cane, and for a moment, the ghost of a smile flickers across his lips. If you find this summary helpful, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to Novel Whisper Official, and comment below the title of the novel you'd like us to summarize next. We'll make it happen soon. And with that, we step deeper into the streets of Ketterdam, where shadows dance and destiny waits. The news of Vanek's offer lingers in Kaz's mind like smoke curling in still air. 30 million krug. A number so large it seems unreal, yet Kaz's imagination is already dissecting it, stacking coins, picturing ships, safe houses, weapons, bribes. He knows it cannot be done alone. He will need a crew, one built not of loyalty, but necessity, bound together by ambition and desperation. The first piece of the puzzle is already close. Inej Gaffa, the Wraith. She moves through the slat's rafters like a whisper, unseen, unheard, until she chooses otherwise. She is Kaz's shadow, his knife in the dark, the one who knows the whispers before they become rumors. Yet Inej carries chains, heavier than any Kaz can see. Stolen from her family, sold into a brothel, bought out by Kaz, not as an act of mercy, but as a transaction. And yet, somewhere in that bargain, something more fragile was forged. A trust that both terrifies and steadies her. She follows him, though her heart still dreams of freedom, of the mother and father she lost, of a horizon untainted by blood. Jesper Fahy is next, a sharpshooter with a grin too wide and a trigger finger too quick. He lounges in the gambling dens of East Stave, where dice clatter and fortunes dissolve. His charm masks his debts, and his debts could bury him if the wrong collectors come calling. Jesper owes Kaz more than money. He owes him the illusion of safety. Beneath the laughter, though, Jesper hides a secret he doesn't even admit to himself. The spark of Grisha power running in his blood. Something he buries under bullets and bravado. Nina Zenik brings another edge to the plan. A Grisha Heartrender, vibrant, confident, with laughter that can disarm as easily as her powers can stop a heart. She knows the language of silk and seduction, but beneath the smile burns anger. Anger at the Feardans who hunt her kind like animals, who chained her, who would have left her to rot. But fate bound her once to Matthias Helvar, a Fjerdan Druskelle, sworn to kill Grisha, captor and captive, guard and prisoner. Their story twisted into something neither could escape. Nina carries guilt as much as longing, and when Kaz seeks her out, he knows her loyalty is as tangled as her past. And Matthias, the hardest to sway, a soldier forged in ice, with faith colder than the winters of Fjerda. He was trained to see Grisha as monsters, abominations to be cleansed. But the bond with Nina has left cracks in that certainty, cracks he fights to seal. To ask him to betray his homeland, his oaths, his very soul, is to ask for a war inside his chest. Yet Kaz knows something vital. Matthias knows the ice court. Its walls, its patrols, its hidden paths. Without him, the heist is nothing but a dream. There are others to be convinced, other bargains to strike, but already the picture forms. A gambler, a spy, a soldier, a Grisha. Each with reasons to walk away, each with reasons they cannot. They do not trust Kaz, not fully, but they know what he offers is more than money. He offers a chance, however slim, to change the course of their lives. And so the crew begins to coalesce, not with warmth or welcome, but with wary glances and unsaid questions. Can they survive one another long enough to face the fortress? Can wounds buried in silence remain hidden when every step forward demands faith in the very people who might betray them? Kaz does not ask those questions. He only sharpens his mind on the whetstone of risk. He sees each of them as a piece of the game, each to be moved, each to be sacrificed if necessary. Yet even he cannot ignore the fragile tether pulling them closer, a tension that feels both dangerous and indispensable. As the night deepens over Ketterdam, the crows gather in shadowed corners and smoky rooms. One by one, they are drawn into Kaz's orbit, bound not by friendship, but by a mission that could break them all. And somewhere in the silence between them, the heist begins to take shape. The rooftops of Ketterdam are a world apart from the clamoring streets below. Up here, the air smells of rain-soaked slate and chimney smoke. The cries of gulls sharper, the shadows longer. This is where Inej Gaffa moves like a phantom, her soft-soled boots never making a sound. She is the wraith, the whisper of silk that slips through open windows and closed secrets alike. When she moves, no one notices until it is too late. She glides along the ledges, her scarf brushing the damp stone, eyes catching the faint glow of lanterns in the distance. Every path is familiar, every handhold memorized. Once, she was a daughter in a family of acrobats, trained to balance on ropes as thin as breath, to fly above cheering crowds. Now she balances on the edge of survival, flying above streets where men would sell her name, her body, her soul, if given half a chance. Yet she's not without purpose. Kaz Brekker pulled her from the menagerie, bought her freedom with coin and contracts. Though she knows he did it for himself, though she knows she's bound to him by ledger as much as loyalty, something in his eyes, cold and calculating yet somehow tethered to a deeper grief, makes her stay. She owes him, yes, but she also believes, against reason, that he sees her as more than just another tool. Tonight, she listens. Perched above a gambling den, she leans close to an open window. Inside, voices murmur, laughter bursts, dice tumble. But beneath the din is something else. The whisper of names, of rumors tied to Jorda Param, of Grisha seen trembling after tasting its fire. She memorizes it all, every syllable, every smirk. Information is her weapon, sharper than any blade she carries. Later, she slips into the slat, unseen even among her own. Kaz waits in his office, hunched over maps and papers, his gloved hands shuffling the future into place. The cane rests against his chair, its crow's head gleaming in the candlelight. Without turning, he says, "What did you hear?" Inej gives him the whispers. Merchants speaking of shipments gone missing. Guards suddenly better paid. Chemists vanishing without trace. She speaks of Grisha, seen near the docks, their powers burning brighter, wilder, terrifying even themselves. Kaz listens without a flicker of emotion, but inside, every detail slides neatly into the puzzle of Vanek's offer. He does not thank her. He never does. But she knows he trusts her reports more than any man's oath. Still, she hesitates. Her voice softens. Kaz, this job, it's not just another gamble. The ice court, I know what it is. He cuts in. His eyes lift, hard and sharp, but beneath them, shadows stir. He knows the risk, knows the impossible weight of what they're attempting. Yet his will is iron. That's why we're going to take it. She studies him, the boy who wears armor made of secrets and scars. She thinks of the way his hands never touch bare skin, the way he keeps everyone at a distance, even as he draws them in. And she wonders, not for the first time, if he's building an empire, or simply walling himself inside a prison of his own making. But she does not press. She only nods because this is what she does. She follows, she listens, she becomes his shadow, even as she dreams of a horizon beyond Ketterdam. As dawn creeps over the city, the streets stir with merchants and beggars, the air thick with promise and deceit. Somewhere in the maze, Jesper loads his pistols with a flourish. Nina barters with smugglers at the docks, and Matthias wrestles with ghosts colder than any sea wind. Each prepares in their own way, yet all are bound now to a single path, one that begins with the wraith in the dark and the boy with a crow's cane. The city watches, though it does not know it. The crows are gathering. Morning slides over Ketterdam like a coin across a table, dull at first, then catching light. Jesper Fahe sits where he always does when his nerves need quieting, at a shooting stall tucked behind a gambling den, where cracked glass bottles glitter in a crooked row. He rolls a pistol in his palm, flips it, catches it by the grip without looking. A crowd gathers despite themselves. Showmanship draws eyes, but the precision keeps them. He fires once, twice, thrice. Bottles shatter into spinning rings of green glass that catch the new sun, and someone whistles, low and admiring. Jesper grins like he's been paid. Kaz appears at the edge of the lane, cane planted like a claim stake. Jesper holsters the pistol and saunters over, a smirk doing the work of 3 greetings. "You're early," Jesper says. "You're in debt," Kaz replies. Jesper spreads his hands. "So are most interesting men." Kaz doesn't smile. "Ice court, 30 million. You and your guns." It is not an invitation. It is gravity. Jesper hears the clink of dice in another room, hears his creditors muttering in doorways where the light doesn't reach, feels the tug of old habits like a hand at his sleeve. He tilts his head, studies Kaz, then nods once. "Fine. But if I die somewhere freezing, I'll haunt you with very embarrassing songs. Get ammunition," Kaz says, "and stop performing for people who can't afford tickets." The cane clicks away. Jesper watches him go and lets the grin drop. His hand trembles just a little, and he tightens his fingers until the fine tremor quiets. The truth thrums beneath his skin, a filament of power he pretends not to notice. Steel and powder feel safer than secrets. He inhales, holsters, and chooses motion over thought. On the docks, Nina Zenik barters with a fishmonger as if she were negotiating a treaty. She gestures, laughs, compliments the man's mustache with such sincere scandal that he nearly gives her the catch for free. She slips away with a basket and a wink, the air around her softening as if it likes the shape she makes in it. People do that around Nina. Hearts uncoil, tongues loosen. She's a heartrender, but most days her greatest weapon is how easily she turns strangers into allies. She pauses at the rail and stares north. Fjerda sits beyond the horizon like a judgment you can't outrun. She remembers the taste of snow in the back of her throat, the cold that made bones sing. She remembers the ship, the storm, the shouts in a language still half hers, half enemy. And she remembers him. Matthias Helvar steps through her memory as if it were a door he owns. Broad-shouldered, eyes the blue of winter ponds, jaw set with the piety of a soldier who has never doubted the map of his world. He found her in chains. He escorted her with disdain. A Driscoll is sworn to hunt her kind. He called her witch. He called her dangerous. And he looked at her like a problem God had set to test him. The test failed them both. The storm wrecked the ship on black rocks. Men screamed and vanished under waves. Nina clung to a broken spar until her hands bled. Matthias pulled her from the icy throat of the sea, dragged her to a cave that smelled of salt and basalt, and built a fire with hands that shook and refused to admit it. They survived because neither could bring themselves to let the other die. Days blurred into a single fever dream of cold and hunger. He spoke of duty. She mocked him out of principle, then smiled because the hurt on his face was too sincere to hate. He shared dried meat and silent prayers. She warmed his hands with power and hoped he didn't notice. He noticed. He only looked away. There was a night, the wind paused, and the world felt held. Moonlight laid a silver path across the mouth of the cave. Nina watched his profile and felt the strange, clean pain of something that could not be named, because names make things real. He caught her looking. For a moment, the distance between them seemed smaller than breath. Then rescue came. Wrong rescue. Slavers. Nina made a choice that has been gnawing on her ever since. She spoke words that saved his life and destroyed it. She accused him to spare him, lied in the only way that would keep him breathing in a city where Grisha are currency and Fjerdan soldiers are trophies. By the time the lie hardened into iron bars, the ship was already turning toward Ketterdam. Now Matthias rots in Hellgate, the prison carved into rock and cruelty, where men dig their graves with their bare hands every day and call it exercise. Nina knows every inch of the guilt that put him there. She visits the cliff above the prison sometimes and watches the incoming barges, pretending she doesn't measure the distance to the sea. That afternoon, she takes the fish to a boarding house kitchen and bribes the cook for time and space. Oil hisses, herbs crackle. When Kaz steps through the back door, the place smells like a memory you'd chase across a continent. "You're late?" Nina says, because it's easier than hello. "You're cooking," Kaz says, which is almost gratitude. Consider it an investment in morale. She plates something golden and impossible, sets it on a crate as if it were a throne. "Soap? The rumor is true." "You mean to rob the ice court?" "I mean to walk in and then walk out," Kaz says. What we do between those two verbs is logistics. She laughs, then studies him. You'll need me. And you'll need him. We'll need him, Kaz corrects, because he has already decided she will come. Hellgate will complicate the timetable. The words land like a bell struck in her chest. She imagined this conversation. She dreaded it. She has rehearsed and rewritten every sentence, and none fits now. You plan to free Matthias Helvar, she says, and the room feels smaller. I plan to recruit him, Kaz says. Freedom is a side effect we can discuss later. Nina looks at her hands. The oil sheen on her fingers catches the light. If he sees me, he'll try to kill me. If he sees 30 million reasons not to, he'll try less hard. She should argue. She should list a dozen traps in the plan and twice as many reasons to leave Matthias to his fate. Instead, she says, when? Kaz names a tide. He names a guard rotation. He names a bribe that will make a man look the other way at exactly the moment a key changes pockets. He names risks like he's counting prayer beads and wears patience like armor. Nina listens and feels the old world pull and the new one shove until she lands on the only steady thing she owns. If he dies in Hellgate because of me, she says very gently, I will raise this city to its foundation. Kaz inclines his head. Not a promise, not a threat, an acknowledgement. Then don't fail. Night finds Jesper on a rooftop with Inej, passing a flask between them and pretending it's courage. He tries a joke. Inej smiles, the kind of private small curve a person makes when their humor belongs mostly to themselves. She tells him which gutters to avoid on the approach, which windows have cracked latches, where a guard snores through the night like a saw through pine. Jesper listens. When she speaks of Hellgate, a quiet settles over the roof tiles. You don't approve, Jesper says. I don't disapprove, Inej replies. Approval is a luxury. We have work. Matthias will be thrilled, Jesper mutters. We will be careful, she says, which is not the same as safe. Below them, the city murmurs, a body asleep, but dreaming of knives. Above them, the sky opens, a cold blue-black bowl scattered with indifferent stars. In a cell miles away, a man with a soldier's back straightens at the sound of distant waves and counts breaths instead of days. Nina stands by the sea and lets the wind hit her face until it numbs thought. Jesper cleans his guns as if polishing could set fate in order. Inej oils her knives while whispering the names of the people she will free when she has enough coin to turn debts into doors. And Kaz sits alone at a desk littered with maps and memoranda, scheming against a fortress and against his own past, which is always the better-built prison. The crew is a shape now, not a hope. Fire and frost, impulse and discipline, knife and heart. The kind of balance that cuts you if you lean too hard one way or the other. The kind of balance that, once found, can walk across winter without falling through. They will try Hellgate first, to steal a man from the jaws of the city that eats everything, to prove before the ice and the courts and the armies that they can do the impossible together without breaking on each other's edges. The tide is chosen. The hour is set. All that remains is to step into it. Hellgate wakes before the city. Chains clink. Oars thud. The gulls circle as if they know the stink of fear by name. From the cliff path, the prison looks carved straight out of night. Black rock, blacker water, windows like narrow eyes that never blink. Kaz studies the tides as if they're ledgers. He marks the minute a river current slacks, the second a guard turns his head to spit. He sketches the gate schedule from rumor and bribes. He maps the boat patrols from the way lanterns move across the water like slow stars. Inej waits at his shoulder, another shadow attached to his. She points once, small and sure. That boat never changes crew. A comfort-loving man, Kaz says. Good. Men who count on patterns by their own ruin. Jesper lounges against a crate with pistols wrapped in oilcloth, eyes on the horizon and foot tapping a rhythm that betrays the thrum under his jokes. Nina stands with the wind in her hair and her jaw set, cheeks lit with the kind of resolve that looks like calm until you touch it and find steel. And next to her, trying to look like he belongs on a dock and failing at it with obvious sincerity, stands Wylan. He's young, curls at war with themselves, clothes too clean, even after he tried to make them dirty. His case holds charges wrapped like careful gifts and a flute tucked into velvet, as if sweetness and shrapnel were cousins. He came with Vanek's stamp and a thin explanation. Demolitions, chemistry, maps, insurance, Jesper muttered, squinting at him. Something gentler flickered in Jesper's face when Wylan smiled without guile. Then Jesper masked it with a shrug. Kaz assembled them last night in a warehouse that smelled of rope and salt. He drew arrows on a rough plank, sketched angles in chalk, and spoke the plan like a sentence you don't want to repeat in daylight. We make the prison move a piece of itself, he said. We don't break in, we make them carry him out. He knew the overseer who hates being audited. He knew the clerk who can't read but pretends to. He knew the guard who loses dice and would sell a uniform to win one more hand. He bought a set of forged orders on paper, so cheap it curled at the edges. He bought a rusted seal, then made it bite like a real one. He bought silence. He bought movement. Day bleeds to the appointed hour. A barge noses along the channel, low and grey. On deck, sacks, tools, the kind of cargo men ignore. Under the tarps, Jesper's grin, Inej's knives, Phelan's careful fear, and the bones of a plan that needs only the right crack to grow. Nina and Kaz ride a skiff separately, oars biting water in slow, even strokes. She watches his gloved hands on the oar and thinks of every time she's seen him flinch from touch. The gloves are armor, yes, but also a border. She could ask why. She doesn't. She needs him cold this morning. On Hellgate's outer quay, the forged orders meet a bored man's sigh. The seal thumps red. A second guard squints at the paper as if the letters might rearrange themselves into sense. The overseer swears about inspections and shortages and bureaucrats from the harbor committee, poking their noses where they don't belong. He waves them in with a curse that sounds like mercy. The barge glides into the service dock, where the prison's belly opens in a narrow slit of stone. Jesper and Wylan slip off first, hauling crates like laborers, while Inej vanishes the moment a shadow is deep enough to drink her. Nina and Kaz step onto the slick boards with the confidence of official trouble. The clerk leads them into the tally room, ledger stacks, damp walls, a stove unlit. Their voices echo just enough to make men uncertain of how loud they are. "Roster," Kaz says, tapping the table with a rhythm the clerk unconsciously mirrors. "Block transfers, work assignments, I want yesterday's and today's." The clerk fumbles. Nina leans against the doorframe and smiles as if she's tasted sweeter rooms and decided this one will do for now. Her power moves through the air like a breath no one notices. The men in the room relax. Shoulders drop. The overseer's ire thins. The guard by the door decides the floor is interesting. Kaz flicks his eyes to the page he needs. "Prisoner 221E, he says, bored. Matthias Helvar, work crew, stone cutting, quarry line," the clerk says without thinking, then snaps back at his own candor with a frown. "Pull him," Kaz says, inspection detachment. He signs a name that doesn't belong to him, with a hand no one will ever hold. It's audacity that does the next part. Audacity and rhythm. Orders spoken as if they were gravity. The guard who dislikes thinking waves to another to fetch the prisoner. The overseer barks about delays. Nina compliments the man's efficiency with a warmth that makes his suspicion feel ungenerous even to himself. Down the corridor, a door opens. Boots. A chain clinks. For a heartbeat, the hallway smells like cold and iron and something older. Then Matthias Helvar enters the tally room. He's thinner, which is to say, the stone has carved him down to what it thinks is necessary. The eyes are the same. Winter held in two circles. He sees Nina first, because of course he does. A single breath changes the shape of his chest. Nina stands straight. "You're being reassigned," she says. "Inspection detail. Try not to glower at the officials." His mouth hardens. His gaze slides to Kaz, weighs him, dismisses nothing. "What is this?" "Employment opportunity," Kaz says. "Deferred pay. Excellent travel benefits." The overseer shoves forms at a subordinate, annoyed at the disruption. "Take him," he snaps, "and make it fast. I won't have the day's quota ruined because some clerk needs to count stones we already broke." The hallway is narrow. The escort is two guards who have already decided this is routine. The door to the quay opens on rope creaks and gull cries. Wind cuts. Jesper is already there with a crate and a complaint about how heavy everything is. Weilen hovers at the edge of sight, one hand in his case. Ine descends on silence. The first guard blinks at the sudden weightlessness where his keys should be. The second hears the click of a pistol that got there without walking. "You're both going to sit," Jesper says conversationally. "You're going to look like men who took a break they were owed." Matthias doesn't move. Nina is 3 steps from him, and that feels both too close and not nearly close enough. "Don't," he says softly, and it's unclear whether he's talking to her or to himself. Kaz doesn't reach. He never reaches. "You can walk onto that barge," he says. "You can walk back into that corridor. 10 seconds decide the next year of your life, either way. You put me here," Matthias says. The words hold no heat, only the shape of something that used to burn and learn to live as coal. "Yes," Nina says, "I did, and I'm getting you out." He looks at the water. He looks at her hands. He looks at the guards sitting on the dock, already inventing stories to tell themselves later. He looks at the boy with the cane, who speaks like a ledger that is already closed. He takes one step, then another. The chain at his wrist clinks like an answer to a question he never asked out loud. They move. Jesper backs onto the barge with a flourish that makes the moment look like theatre. Waylon fumbles a coil of rope and flushes when he catches Inej's eye. Nina breathes, tight and slow. Kaz calls a timing with his chin, and the barge shoves off in a push, so ordinary the river hardly notices. On the water, the world widens and becomes more dangerous. Shouts follow them from the quay that might be to another crew, or might be to them. A bell rings somewhere beyond the yard walls. Jesper's jaw flexes. Nina's palm finds the small of Matthias's back before she remembers herself and snatches it away. He doesn't flinch. He stares at the city as if it might be convinced to vanish by the power of his refusal. A patrol boat noses from behind a breakwater, oar blades like silver teeth. Wyland's voice is too quiet when he says, "Left bank eddy. If we cut early, we can drift behind the grain barges." Kaz doesn't look at him, but the order shifts a degree. The barge kisses the shadow of a larger hull. For a few breaths, they are part of a moving wall. The patrol slides past, faces turned to where a gull fight is louder than law. Inej's hand rests on a cleat, ready to cut free if the drift lies. Jesper hums under his breath, a tune that would be cheerful in a world that deserves it. The city takes them back in as easily as it births crimes. They vanish into a canal with bridges low as eyelids and bricks sweating summer's old heat. Only then does the crew let the held breath leave. In a shuttered warehouse, slipped between a tannery and a carpentry yard, they cut Matthias's chains. The iron falls to the floor with a clatter that sounds like a door closing on a chapter no one liked to read. He rubs his wrists without looking away from Nina. "You will tell me why," he says. "I will," she answers. The words come out like a vow, placed carefully on a table between knives. Kaz gives them exactly 3 seconds of privacy, because that is what he can afford. Then he taps his cane against the plan laid out on a crate. "We leave at dusk," he says. "We sail under false manifests for a colder fate. Learn your parts. There will be no rehearsal." He starts assigning roles, like tools taken from a belt. Jesper, guns and misdirection. Energy, paths no one else will see. Nina, pulse and persuasion. Matthias, map of a fortress no foreigner knows. Wyland, doors that open to pressure and flame. Kaz keeps the center and never calls it that. The arguments come, as they must. Jesper wants a louder exit strategy. Inej wants an extraction route that doesn't involve faith. Matthias wants safeguards against his own people's relentless patience. Nina wants assurances that sound like absolution. Wyland wants to be treated like more than a stamp from his father's desk. Kaz wants silence so the math can speak. They trade demands until the plan holds the shape of all their fears and only a few of their hopes. Dusk runs like ink through the canals. The ship waits with a false name and a true hunger for distance. Ropes creak, crates thump. The city's lights blink like the eyes of a thing that will not bless your leaving. On the dock, Inej touches the rail and whispers the names of the people she will save when this is done. Jesper checks his guns again and pretends he didn't already check them twice. Wylan stands at the gangway and looks back at Ketterdam as if it might decide to be kind for once. Nina and Matthias share air without words and carry a silence that is heavier than steel, but somehow still floats. Kaz Brekker sets his cane on the gangplank and crosses into the dark, like a man entering a story he intends to own. The ship breathes like a living thing, ribs creaking as it noses into colder latitudes, canvas snapping as if trying to shake ice from its teeth. Night tightens earlier each day. The sea lifts and lowers them until hours smear. Tar stings the eyes, salt coats lips. Work finds every pair of hands, even those that prefer streets to rigging. Matthias stands at the bow when he can, face turned north, as if trying to absorb the map through skin. Fjordur is a taste in the air for him, before it is a line on the horizon. The clean bite of pine, the metal tang of snow. Each degree closer steadies his posture and unsettles everything else. Below, in the cramped belly that smells of rope and old storms, Kaz parcels out the hours like currency. Wylan learns to pack explosives so that one piece sings to another without either ever touching flame. He listens with that full-body attention of the very young and the very careful. Jesper leans nearby, pretending to nap, eyes half-lidded, catching each equation anyway. When Wylan pauses over a coil of fuse, Jesper's voice appears, easy as a coin trick. Shorter burn in cold wind. You'll think you gave yourself a 5 count and end up with 3. Ask me how I know. How do you know? Wylan asks, because he hasn't learned yet that Jesper sometimes asks not to be asked. Missing hole in a pier, 1 soggy gambler, 2 dead lanterns. Long story. Wylan smiles despite himself. Jesper looks away like it's too bright. Up on deck, Inej climbs. The rigging becomes a cathedral of rope and wind, a place where fear has no purchase because there is no time for it. She moves hand over hand, eyes calculating sway, foot seeks knot, heel finds brace. She doesn't pray for safe passage. She prays to remember each angle of the ice court gate, the way she remembers these lines. Where to hold, where to leap, where a fall becomes flight because you refuse to consider falling. Nina drills them in subtler arts. Don't stare at uniforms, she says, standing with her back to the mast as the ship tilts. A true servant of order sees everything by not appearing to look at anything. Sweep with your gaze. Let it slide. Jesper. He attempts a lazy glance, a parody of disinterest. She shakes her head. Less theater, more boredom. He tries again, and the swagger bleeds into something quieter. Better, Nina says, then turns to Wylan. You will want to watch too much. Choose one thing. The door latch, a sleeve color. Settle there. What about me? Inej asks. You vanish by standing still, Nina says. But when you must be seen, be useful. A person carrying a bucket is a person no one stops. Matthias joins reluctantly when the lessons turn to language and custom. He demonstrates the Fjordan salute, how the palm angles to the heart, how the elbow does not waver. He corrects the vowels of Jel's name until the syllable lands like a struck bell. He lists ranks without inflection, then quietly repeats them with the weight he learned in snow and discipline. You do not pass a druskel on his right, he says. You do not question orders at the gate. You do not laugh in the hearing of a priest in uniform. Do you laugh anywhere? Jesper asks. Matthias blinks as if the concept requires translation. Nina smiles into her sleeve. Wind hardens. It slides claws beneath coats, turns breath into smoke. The ship grows smaller under a low belly of cloud. On the third night, a storm finds them the way wolves find a limping thing. Waves rise black and sudden. The deck tilts into a slick plain. Men shout, lines scream. The mast groans like an old tree protesting an axe. Kaz is on deck before anyone realizes he's left maps. The first slap of cold water across his boots freezes him in place. For an instant, his breath shears in his throat, and the world narrows to the memory he never invited. A body not yet a man, dragged under by weight and river and other bodies. A boy clutching another's hand that will become a nightmare of bone. The gloves are suddenly too thin. The sea is a grave with 1,000 hands. Breathe. Inej's voice, not touching him, only there. She's braced wide, one hand on a line, hair whipped to a black flag. You have 10 paces to the lee rail. Count them. 10, 9, 8. He moves because counting is something a drowning boy could not do. 10 becomes 8, then 5. The ship pitches. Jesper throws a coil that lands like a living thing in Kaz's grip. Wylan hauls on a cleat with teeth bared in concentration. Nina plants herself at the mast, eyes half closed, and sends a hush through frantic hearts, just enough to keep hands precise. Matthias drives pegs into icy sockets with a hammer that sounds like argument settled by force. The storm tastes them and loses interest. It leaves behind a deck salted with shattered spray and a crew that has learned the lines on one another's faces. Inej descends last, palms raw and smiling like someone who has reminded herself of an old, useful truth. Fine, Jesper says to no one. We rob a fortress, but first the weather tries to murder us. Practice, Kaz says, voice even again, knuckles bloodless on the cane. He avoids the puddles as if they are traps set for him personally. In a way they are. Days flatten and sharpen both. They sleep in snippets, eat whatever the cook can coax from barrels and brine. Matthias teaches a hymn, not because he intends to convert anyone, but because he knows the patrols will sing it. Voices stumble, then find the notes. Jesper turns the melody into something almost jaunty, then returns it to the sober line when he catches Nina's look. Wylan's fingers worry a flute into being at dusk. He plays quiet, eyes on his shoes, and the tune threads the deck like a line someone can follow home. At last the water changes color, the grey somehow more silver, the chop finer. Shore looms as a suggestion, then a contour. Low cliffs white as scraped bone, a fringe of black pines, roofs like kneeling shoulders, huddled against wind. A whaling village holds the dock, its air thick with oil that never entirely leaves a place once it settles in. Men with beards like frost stare with that guarded curiosity of people who know the world will not do them any favors. The ship shows papers that say it carries rope and tar and replacement sockets for harpoons. No one is sure if they believe it. But belief is less important than custom. And money is a kind of custom. They do not linger. A cart appears, creaking and ordinary. Their crates suddenly look like anything. Their faces become less themselves. Nina loosens cheekbones, narrows a nose, shifts the hinge of a jaw here and there. Small edits that carry the largest distances. Jesper tries on a stoop and discards it. Inej gathers a headscarf into a knot a local woman would make, with her eyes closed. Wielan, smallest, becomes more invisible by holding a ledger. Kaz exchanges his hat for one uglier and more respectable. Matthias shrugs into a worker's coat that fits his shoulders. Like memory, they take the back road, the one that runs along a frozen marsh, where reeds shiver like a rumor. The sky presses low. Snow begins as a thought, then commits. Inej watches their trail disappear behind them, satisfied. Wielan counts steps between milestones until numbers soothe him. Jesper complains quietly about fingers, then spins the discomfort into jokes for Wielan's sake. Nina walks near Matthias, the space between them measured and filled with 100 unsaid clarifications. Kaz keeps the pace, swinging the cane in a rhythm that accepts no argument. They shelter one night in a cooper's shed, whose owner has been paid to look away from shapes of people. Kaz marks 3 exits. Inej finds the 4th in a seam of the wall no one else would have checked. Jesper sleeps with one pistol under his shoulder. Wielan sleeps with a fuse tucked behind his ear, as if it were a pencil. Nina doesn't sleep long. Matthias doesn't either. They keep watch at different hours and say nothing about how their footsteps sound the same in packed snow. Closer to the capital, the roads wear uniforms. Patrols move with the certainty of men who believe the world is built to hold them up. Matthias teaches final details in short, flat sentences. At the outer gate, the red pennant means inspection. At the second arch, Druskelle will post dogs. They scent fear. If you cannot master fear, master breath. Dogs smell breath first. Nina smiles without humor. I will teach my lungs not to be alive. He looks at her and nearly says something that would make the road crack open, then chooses a nod. Only he understands. By the time they crest the last rise, the ice court is a geometry drawn against cloud. Walls layered like winter itself. Towers like spears planted in frozen earth. Flags snapping the law into the wind. It is a story told in stone that insists on one ending. Matthias's hands loosen and tighten on nothing. Jesper's breath plumes faster. Wielan whispers the measurements he memorized, as if reciting prayer. Inej feels the prickling exactness that comes before a leap. Nina steadies her pulse, then another's. Kaz taps the cane once, a small sound that nonetheless orders everything in a neat line inside his head. They do not stop to admire or fear. They check their disguises in a shard of tin. They confirm signals. They repeat the lie until it sounds true. The fortress waits. The crew moves. 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 From a distance, the ice court looks like an argument carved into the horizon. Up close, it becomes a system. Concentric walls buttress one another like frozen waves. Towers spear the sky. Gates are not doors, but sequences, each demanding a different answer. Flags crack with the sound of a verdict carried on wind. The place is designed to make a person feel smaller with every step. It works. The first ring smells of horse, pitch, and old snow. Trade cards queue, axles groaning, uniforms multiply. The checkpoint routine is a lullaby sung in iron. Jesper's hat sits low. Wylan hunches into the ledger he carries, spectacles fogging. Inage balances a coil of rope that marks her as someone whose hands are always busy and therefore beneath notice. Nina becomes the kind of servant who knows when to be heir. Matthias walks like the ground is reciting his name back to him. Kaz keeps his cadence exact. A clerk's patience in a body that refuses to hurry for anyone. The papers meet tired eyes. The forged seal kisses frost-dark wood. A bored officer flips a page, frowns at a smudge, and waves them through because boredom wields more power on long shifts than suspicion. They roll under the first arch, and the temperature seems to drop a degree with the shade. Inside the ring wall, the world tightens into lanes. Barracks huddle with the disciplined ugliness of structures that care more for endurance than welcome. Drill yards glitter with packed ice. Jesper catalogues firing lines without meaning to. Inage maps shadow to shadow as if drawing water from a well. Nina tastes fear on the air like the faint bitterness of oversteeped tea. There are too many hearts in this place beating to one rhythm. Matthias names buildings under his breath. Kennel, armory, administrative hall, chapel. He does not touch the chapel's threshold with his eyes. They stop at a work post to register their cargo. The clerk is new to authority and compensates by sharpening his quill like a weapon. Nina leans weight against the desk, as if confiding. Breath by breath, she widens his span of routine, until it fits them, like a borrowed coat. He stamps without looking up. Kaz leaves exactly the right number of coins to make a man feel smart for finding them on his own later. The second gate has dogs, white-coated beasts, fur roughed by the cold, eyes like clean knives. The handler walks them in a slow figure, 8, meant to tangle scent into certainty. Matthias's jaw moves once, tightening on a prayer he refuses to say aloud. Steady breath, he murmurs. Fear smells like speed. Nina eases the edge of their pulses until even Jesper's heartbeat saunters. Inage looks at the dogs and thinks of cages broken, learns their rhythm, and gives them her back for 2 paces. The insult animals accept from people who belong. The gates open inward. Beyond them spreads a courtyard, too large for comfort. The stone here is lighter, a pale that holds sunlight painfully even in winter. At the far side, a bridge leaps a chasm toward the White Island, that inner citadel where the real secrets nest. Between here and there rise more gates and more rituals. The plan will not walk. It will climb. They peel off into their prearranged invisibilities. Jesper and Wylan break towards the supply sheds with a crate that rattles just enough to be plausible. Inage drifts like smoke along the shadowed side of the drill yard until shadow accepts her completely. Nina falls into step with a line of kitchen workers carrying sacks toward a service door that inhales and exhales warm breath. Matthias and Kaz keep the cart. Then the cart vanishes because it was only ever a permission slip written in wood. They become men on an errand. No one stops men on errands that sound tedious. A siren moans in the distance. Not alarm, Marking the hour, patrols shift like chess pieces moved by an unseen player. Kaz watches the pattern and feels that rare satisfaction when a map drawn in his head overlays perfectly on the living ground. It will not last. He does not need it to. He needs just enough matches between expectation and now to spend the rest on audacity. Jesper and Weilen find their shed. The lock is a bluff. Weilen hums a note. Fingers decide. Metal sighs. Latch yields. Inside, racks of rope, crates of nails, barrels of oil, the private smell of wood that has not yet learned the cold of its destiny. Weilen lays out parts as if setting a quiet supper, intimate and precise. Jesper keeps time with the whisper of commentary, only half for humor. When Weilen's hands pause, Jesper says, too lightly, "You're doing fine." And the words land warmer than the air allows. Innate slides into a maintenance corridor that runs like a vein behind Pomp. She marks the vents, the seams in stone where old brick meets new repair, the ladder with one rung split at the back. She catalogues guard ticks, the man who scratches his wrist every 20 counts, the one who checks his boot heel when he turns the corner. She mirrors a worker's stride long enough to borrow a key to memory, and then returns to being air. Nina enters the warmth and lets it enter her. Kitchens everywhere smell the same when the service is in full press. Butter searing into bread, onions surrendering to heat. The owned thunder of a chef who believes order is a religion. She picks up a bowl, stirs a pot, laughs softly at the right insult. She learns where the pantry door sticks and which scullion always leaves it ajar, because doors that don't close make lives easier for more than thieves. From a high window, she sees the bridge again and counts the guard pulses by the way steam plumes from mouths. She sends a breath outward, stone smoothing under the feet of men who would normally stomp. If they move more quietly, so much the better. Matthias guides Kaz through an administrative hall lined with maps that pretend to be neutral. Clerks scratch lines of script that will decide the shape of someone's day, far away from the ink. A board lieutenant frowns at a board of postings. Kaz understands the arithmetic of bureaucracy intuitively. Who never wants to be asked twice, who will sign anything presented at stride while thinking of supper? Who needs a reason, and who needs a tone? He adopts the tone. The corridor yields. They reach a view slit that looks down onto the inner ring. There the layout changes. Beauty begins to justify brutality. Carved reliefs turn war into myth across a frieze. A ceremonial gate stands taller than need. The approach to the White Island narrows into a single line of decision. Matthias names the checkpoints without looking. Here they will check teeth under smiles. Here they will measure your silence. Here they will ask you to swear. You must let the oath slide past like wind. Do not try to catch it. Kaz nods once. His hands rest on the cane head. The leather of his gloves creaks. He thinks of cost and writes the line under the tally. Keys? He asks. 3 kinds, Matthias says. Metal for doors, words for people, timing for everything else. He glances at Kaz. You rely too much on the 3rd. And you on the 2nd, Kaz replies. Between us, we might pretend to be complete. They retreat into motion. The first signal flies, nothing literal, just a boy in a storeroom folding a cloth twice. in a way that means now. Jesper and Wylan slide their bundle into the belly of a supply cart. Inej goes across a beam above a narrow hall and drops a loop of line that will become a path where no architect intended one. Nina passes through a guard room with a tray and leaves behind a conversation louder than the need to check a signature. Matthias meets a Driscoll pair at a corner, touches his hand to his heart at the right angle, and survives the scrutiny by not forcing it to end sooner than it wants. Kaz takes the staircase that counts people by sound. 2 levels down and a corridor left will lead to the mechanism room the plan needs. He hits the landing as the hour shifts again, and a bell speaks that same cold syllable across stone. Footsteps echo. He stops beside a pillar and lets 3 soldiers pass, cataloguing cadence and weight without lifting his eyes. The 4th man lingers, irritated by a thought he cannot quite assemble. Kaz becomes irritation's mirror, immovable in the precise way of someone who belongs enough to be in the way. The man mutters and goes. Kaz moves. They reconvene in a storeroom that smells of wax and old winter. Each arrives on the beat assigned. It feels like breath taken together. Wylan checks his charges in a glance. Jesper spins a cylinder and closes it with a click that says, ready. Inej adjusts a knot that will save minutes later. Nina presses 2 fingers to her temple, then to Matthias's wrist. A small exchange of strength neither acknowledges. Kaz lays the schematic he memorized on air and assigns the next cuts. They will split now. 2 toward the mechanism that governs a gate condemned to never fail. 2 toward the prisoner vault, not called that on any map. 2 into the beautiful heart where masks make men honest in the worst ways. They will trust doors that do not yet exist and silences they have not earned. Outside the wall, wind goes on being wind. Inside, the fortress waits, certain it knows every possible shape of threat. The crows begin to teach it another. The ice court opens like a puzzle box, each panel hiding another trap. Tonight, the gears shift faster, for it is a night of spectacle. Masks gleam in torchlight as feared-done nobility stride into the grand hall, their laughter hard and cold. Musicians strike strings until they snap, the sound echoing off vaulted ceilings, carved with the triumphs of Driscoll hunts. The masquerade is pageantry, but beneath the gilding lies surveillance. Eyes behind painted masks are sharper than blades. Jesper adjusts his own disguise, the black silk slipping over his features. He cannot stop grinning, though it trembles at the edges. A party? Finally. All that sneaking in storerooms and not one decent drink. Fjorda really knows how to throw a welcome. Beside him, Wylan fiddles with the strap of his mask, curls peeking out like mutinous fire. Jesper nudges his elbow. You make a very convincing lordling, Murchie. Just keep your chin up and pretend you're insulted by everyone. I don't have to pretend. Wylan mutters, earning a low laugh that steadies them both. Across the courtyard, Inej dissolves into the eddies of servants. She carries a tray laden with crystal goblets, her steps measured, shoulders bent just enough. No one notices the way her eyes count the guards, the staircases, the door that breathes a colder draft from the white island bridge. She passes beneath chandeliers, heavy with icicles. Hears the clink of glass, The whisper of silk skirts, the careful shuffle of men with too many weapons hidden under finery. Each step folds her deeper into shadow. Nina, radiant even in disguise, threads through the hall with dangerous ease. Her gown flows scarlet, her mask feathered, her laugh disarming. She draws eyes, but only as long as she wishes them drawn. A Heartrender's charm hums beneath her voice, subtle, intoxicating. She brushes a shoulder here, whispers a word there, and guards forget they meant to notice something else. Yet her heart drums louder with each turn of her head, each fleeting glimpse of Matthias in his uniform. He wears the grey of a Driscoll, shoulders squared, hair cropped close. He looks as though he has never left this place, as though the fortress itself carved him from its stone. But Nina sees the crack beneath the mask, the flicker of conflict when his gaze lingers on her for a second too long. He recites the rituals with perfect precision, his voice cold, his posture unyielding. But his pulse stutters when her hand brushes past in the crowd. Meanwhile, Kaz slips unseen through corridors, meant for the unimportant. His cane taps softly, echo swallowed by the hum of celebration above. He counts locks, memorizes angles, notes which doors are barred from the inside. His gloves rasp against parchment as he lifts a schematic from a distracted clerk's desk. Eyes drinking in every line. The fortress believes in symmetry. Kaz believes symmetry is where weakness hides. The plan splinters into threads. Jesper and Wylan must plant charges near the eastern gate mechanism. Subtle, hidden, ready for extraction. Inej must secure a path across the White Island Bridge, a vein in the fortress's heart. Nina and Matthias must dance between roles, the soldier and the temptress, the executioner and the condemned. And Kaz must weave them all together without ever revealing how fragile the tapestry is. Jesper slips into the gatehouse with Wylan at his side. The gears here grind like giant's teeth, iron chains taut as sin. Wylan kneels, laying his tools out with reverence. His hands move without tremor, shaping charges that look like nothing more than lumps of coal. Jesper watches, too restless to stay still, spinning a pistol idly. You know, Murchie, you really do have the prettiest frown. Makes a man want to focus. Wylan snaps, cheeks pink. Jesper smirks, but falls silent, eyes darting to the window where torchlight glows red against snow. Inej ascends. She climbs the bridge's scaffolding, the world shrinking beneath her to dots of light and echoes of song. The air is cruel, freezing her breath into needles, but her steps are sure. She drives a grappling hook into stone, ties knots with fingers that do not falter. She is the wraith, unseen, untouchable, a shadow strung across ice. Yet in the back of her mind whispers a prayer not to saints, but to her family. To remember her when the night is darkest. Nina plays her part with reckless grace. She laughs into the ear of a merchant prince, pressing close enough that his suspicion melts into desire. She loosens his tongue with charm, drawing details of patrol rotations he would never speak sober. All the while, her gaze flickers to Matthias. When he strides past, rigid in duty, her chest twists. She remembers the cave, the storm, the fire they shared, and wonders if any trace of that man still survives beneath the steel. And Matthias, He walks a knife's edge sharper than any blade. His comrades greet him with familiarity, with respect. He answers their words in the old cadence, the one that once defined his life. Each syllable is betrayal now, yet his mouth forms them flawlessly. He feels the pull of belonging, the ache of what he has lost. And still he turns his eyes toward Nina, toward the path he has chosen, even as doubt gnaws at him like wolves at bone. The masquerade swells, music climbing, voices rising, a tide of sound masking the careful clicks of locks undone, the soft scrape of rope across stone, the whispered prayers of those who gamble everything on shadows. For now, the plan holds. The masks are unbroken. The ice court hums, unaware that its heart has already been breached. But beneath the music, the fortress feels it, a faint disturbance, like the first crack spreading through ice too thin to bear the weight above it. Deep within the ice court, past polished halls and walls carved with runes of judgment, lies the place no reveler at the masquerade ever sees. The prison vaults sprawl beneath the white island like a buried city, each cell a wound sealed in iron. The air is heavy with damp stone and silence sharpened by distant screams. It is here the crew must thread their most dangerous path. Kaz leads them down narrow stairwells, cane tapping in rhythm with his steps. The plan is stretched taut, every movement balanced against failure. Jesper and Wylan linger above to guard the gatehouse diversion, their charges set like promises in the dark. Inedge is already vanished, her path through rafters and beams carving exits, no map records. That leaves Kaz, Nina, and Matthias to descend toward the vault, where Boyul Bayur is rumored to be held. The guards below are not bored men at posts. They are Druskel, sharp-eyed, their gazes sweeping like blades. Matthias moves among them with the precision of memory, his salute exact, his voice steady. He murmurs the right words in Fjerdan, the cadence of command slipping from his lips, as if no years had passed. The guards nod, believe, and step aside. Nina watches every motion, heart pounding. The man she knew in the cave, who warmed her frozen fingers, who prayed beside her, who looked at her with something like wonder. He is here too, but buried under layers of obedience and faith. She wonders which Matthias will emerge if the plan begins to fray. The vault doors loom ahead, metal thick enough to outlast fire. Runes gleam faintly in etched lines, a mockery of sanctity. Kaz studies the lock, eyes narrowing. It is no ordinary mechanism, but a puzzle meant to break lesser minds. His gloved hands trace the grooves, counting ridges, mapping pressure points. A thief's prayer in silence. But what they find within is not what Vanek promised. Boyul Bayur is not simply a captive scientist. He's broken, trembling, his veins traced with silver fire from Jurdaperum. His eyes flicker too brightly, his breath shudders, and when he speaks, the words fall in fragments. Ideas scattered like glass across stone. Nina staggers back, horror tightening her chest. She has felt the drug's echo before, but never this close, never so raw. Jurdaparam burns through him, reshaping his gift into something monstrous. The cell itself trembles faintly, as if the stone recoils. Saints, Nina whispers, he's not just alive, he's unraveling. Kaz's gaze sharpens. Not pity, not shock, calculation. He sees the power, And the ruin. He sees the danger of dragging this man back across the sea. 30 million Krug waits. But at what cost? Matthias clenches his fists, torn between loathing and pity. He was raised to believe Grisha were abominations. But this is something else. No man should be twisted like this. No gift weaponized until it consumes its bearer. Baumata's words of the formula, fragments of knowledge worth kingdoms. The seed, the root. Param is not mercy. His voice breaks into laughter, then tears, then silence. Kaz signals sharply. They cannot linger. Already, footsteps echo faintly above. The masquerade swells, but guards shift, suspicion stirring like a storm wind. Inej appears soundlessly in the doorway, eyes sharp. We're running out of time. Nina steps closer to Bo, her powers brushing against him. The torrent of energy nearly knocks her breath away. She staggers, gripping the wall. He won't survive much longer, and if he does... Kaz, he could tear the world apart. Kaz says nothing for a moment. He studies the scientist's trembling frame, the glowing veins, the ruin of a man, once whole. Then he turns to the crew. Our job is to deliver him, alive. Whatever he becomes after that is no longer our concern. His voice is iron, but even he cannot banish the shadow flickering in his eyes. The alarm bell crashes overhead, shattering the fragile moment. Guards' voices rise, boots, hammer stone. Someone has noticed. The masquerade upstairs trembles with confusion, then surges with panic. The crows have been seen. The ice court knows it has been breached, and the true horrors of Joda Param and of the mission they have bound themselves to are only beginning to reveal their teeth. The bell tolls again, deeper this time, the sound shaken dust from stone like a body shuddering off sleep. The masquerade upstairs fractures. Music dies mid-note, nobles scatter, and soldiers close ranks. The ice court awakens to what it was built for. Containment, eradication, war. Kaz does not waste words. He jerks his cane once toward the corridor. Inej vanishes ahead, a shadow guiding shadows. Jesper and Wyland's diversion blooms at the eastern gatehouse, an explosion muffled by stone, but sharp enough to rattle hinges. The guards whirl, confusion splitting their ranks, exactly as planned. But not everything obeys the ledger. Boyulbayr collapses in Nina's arms, his breath a rasp. Veins blaze brighter, silver threading like cracks of lightning through flesh. His body convulses, power spilling uncontrolled. The air vibrates, and for a heartbeat, the walls themselves seem to bend inward. Nina cries out, clutching him, her Grisha senses screaming at the torrent roaring through him. He can't move, she gasps. Saints, Kaz, he'll tear this place apart before we get him out. Kaz's eyes cut to her, hard as flint. Then stop him. I can't, she whispers, not without... She swallows, fear and resolve tangling. Not without Param. Matthias's face goes white. No. His voice cracks against the stone. You don't know what it does. You've seen him. He points to Bo's spasming body, to the ruin trembling in Nina's arms. It will burn you alive. But Nina's hands already shake with the weight of choice. She sees the soldiers swarming, hears the boots on the stairwell, feels the cage snapping shut around them. She sees Matthias's eyes, the faith and fury bound inside him, the memory of firelight in a cave. She sees Kaz, calculating, merciless, already preparing to leave her behind if the numbers demand it. And she knows what this moment requires. "I'll take it," she says. "Nina," Matthias growls, stepping forward as if to stop her. "Don't do this. Don't damn yourself." Her smile is broken, but fierce. "I was damned the day they chained me in this place. This is just me choosing how." She swallows the shimmering grains, bit of fire searing down her throat. For an instant, she cannot breathe. Then the world fractures into light. Her heartbeat hammers, each pulse a thunderclap. The power surges up her veins, a river bursting its banks. She feels every soldier above them, their hearts slamming like drums. She feels Jesper's quick-fire rhythm, Wyland's careful, steady beat. She feels Inej's pulse, sharp and precise as a blade. She feels Matthias, strong, unwavering, torn between rage and devotion. The guards crash into the corridor, weapons drawn, shouts in harsh Fjärdan. Nina lifts her hand and, with a flick, every one of them slams against the wall, as if the stone itself rejected them. Their guns clatter uselessly to the floor. Their mouths gape soundlessly, held by a force they cannot see. Jesper's voice carries faintly from the distance. "Saints alive, remind me never to cheat at cards with her." Nina staggers, but the fire only roars higher. She turns her gaze on the barred door ahead, gestures once, and the iron warps like wax, hinges screaming until the gate sags open. "Move," she commands, voice roughened by power. And the crew obeys, because even Kaz knows when command belongs to another. They push into the service passage. Inej drops behind, covering their trail with swift strikes, blades flashing silent and final. Jesper and Wyland rejoin, faces pale with shock at Nina's transformation. Kaz keeps his pace unbroken, though his eyes flick again and again to Nina, measuring how long before the fire consumes her too. Matthias walks beside her, torn open. He sees the veins glowing like molten silver, the power spilling unchecked, and every teaching of his life screams that she is abomination, proof of Fjärden creed. But the girl beside him, the woman, was the one who once saved him, the one who shared warmth in the dark. He cannot turn away. "You'll kill yourself," he says hoarsely. Nina grins through clenched teeth. "Then let me make it count." At the outer wall, alarms wail. Floodlights blaze across snow. Riflemen line the parapets. Escape routes collapse one by one. But Jesper's charges detonate in a blossom of fire, and smoke cloaks the chaos. Wyland pulls a lever, triggering a pulley system he rigged in secret. Crates swinging into a makeshift bridge. Inej sprints across first, her form barely visible against the dark. Jesper follows with laughter, loud enough to drown fear. Nina lingers, holding the soldiers at bay, with one trembling hand. Each gesture costs more. Her body shivers violently, and Matthias cannot stop himself. He seizes her shoulders, trying to steady her, trying to anchor her in flesh and memory. "Stay with me, Nina. Don't let it take you." She meets his eyes, tears glimmering. "I'd rather burn beside you than live without you." And with one last burst, she hurls the soldiers back, clearing the path for Kaz for Inej, for Jesper, for Wyland. Kaz drags Matthias forward, shoving him across the swaying bridge. She made her choice, he snaps, voice like a blade. But Matthias doesn't hear him. He doesn't care. He only feels Nina's hand slip from his as the flames of power consume her. The crew crashes into the frozen night, the fortress roaring behind them. But the victory is hollow. Nina staggers, veins burning, her strength guttering like a candle in wind. Matthias catches her, cradling her weight, his heart splitting. They escape the vault. They stole the prize. But what Nina gave will haunt them all. Snow whips across the Fjärden night, sharp as broken glass. The crew stumbles through drifts, the fortress behind them alive with alarms. Bells hammer across the walls, horns blare, boots pound like war drums. Light flares in the sky as soldiers ignite beacons. Each flame a signal that the ice court has been breached. Jesper fires into the dark, the crack of his pistols echoing. I don't suppose we could leave a note? Something polite? Thank you for the hospitality. Sincerely the crows. Save your bullets. Kaz snaps, cane biting into the snow. His voice is flat, precise, cutting through the storm. Every shot tells them where we are. Trust me, they already know, Jesper mutters, but he holsters the guns all the same. Villain lugs the demolition case, breath pluming white, curls plastered damp to his forehead. His eyes flick everywhere. Shadows, rooftops, the snowfields yawning wide. He's too young to have learned how to hide fear, but too smart to let it freeze him. Inez runs ahead, her steps barely leaving prints. She charts the narrowest paths, the places where the trees thin, the dips where a body can vanish. Her breath is steady, but her thoughts hum with every choice of rope, every blade hidden in her sash. She has been trained to haunt darkness, but tonight she carries more than her own survival. At the center of it all, Nina, sagging in Matthias's arms. Her veins shimmer faintly beneath the skin, silver fire dimming but not gone. Her power crackles with each heartbeat, an echo of the Jorda Param still raging inside her. She moans once, words slurring. Too loud. They're all too loud. Matthias tightens his hold, jaw rigid. Snow cakes his lashes, melts on his burning skin. Stay with me, he murmurs, as if sheer will can bind her to life. Stay with me, Nina. Her eyes flutter open. She manages a weak smile. You sound like a prayer. He almost breaks at that. For years he prayed to silence Grisha, to rid the world of them. Now his every breath begs one Grisha to live. Kaz halts suddenly, lifting a gloved hand. Ahead, torchlight blooms. A patrol sweeps the tree line, Driscoll hounds straining at chains, their snarls carrying through the storm. Jesper curses under his breath. Wylan fumbles in his satchel, pulling free a small sphere. Flash charge, he whispers. Kaz studies the patrol, the snow, the shadows. He calculates distances, heartbeats, the slope of the hill behind them. Then he nods once. Now, Villain flings the charge. It bursts into light and thunder, the night itself shuddering. The hounds yelp, men shout, rifles crack wild into the dark. The crew bolts sideways, vanishing into a ravine Inej had marked earlier. They run until their lungs tear and their legs scream. The ice court fades behind them, but the sound of pursuit never dies. Feared soldiers are relentless. They will chase until dawn, until blood. At last they reach the frozen river. The ice stretches vast and white, a mirror of the moon. Kaz crouches low, studying the sheen. Cracks spider faintly across the surface, snow dusting over them. It won't hold long, he murmurs. Jesper wipes his brow, squinting. So we're gambling with drowning? Refreshing? Matthias shakes his head. No Fjordan would risk it in this thaw, which is why they won't expect us to. Kaz replies. He drives the cane's crow's head against the ice. It groans, but holds. We go. Single file. Follow my steps. Don't falter. They cross, the river shrieking under their weight. Every footfall is a prayer. Inej moves like a phantom, her balance flawless. Wylan trembles, but follows, eyes fixed on the prince ahead. Jesper mutters jokes to the wind, each one tighter than the last. Nina stirs faintly in Matthias's arms, her weight both anchor and lifeline. Kaz never looks back, only forward, the storm whipping his coat like wings. Halfway across, a gunshot splits the air. A bullet skims ice at Jesper's heel. Driscoll line the far bank, rifles leveled. Kaz's mind races. No cover, no time, only one lever left to pull. He turns sharply to Wylan. Charges. Now. Villain's eyes widen. On the ice? We'll all. Now? Kaz repeats. His voice leaves no room for choice. With trembling hands, Wylan sets a fuse and slides the charge across the frozen sheet. Jesper fires once, twice, buying seconds. Then the explosion tears through the night, ice cracking, water roaring up like a beast unchained. Soldiers scream as the river swallows them whole. The crew stumbles onto the far bank, soaked in spray, trembling with shock. Behind them, the river closes over steel and torchlight. The Fjordans will regroup, but not tonight. For a moment, silence. Just breath, snow, the far-off howl of wind. Matthias kneels, lowering Nina onto the snowbank. Her pulse stutters beneath his fingers. Her eyes flutter half shut, silver veins fading to dull gray. It's leaving me, she whispers. The fire's leaving. Good. Matthias breathes. His voice breaks. Good, let it go. She laughs faintly, coughing. Don't sound so relieved. You'll miss me when I'm gone. His hands clench around hers. I'll never let you go. Kaz turns away, eyes fixed on the horizon, where Ketterdam waits far across sea and snow. 30 million Krug lies ahead. But so do betrayals, yet unseen. He feels the weight of the crew behind him, fractured, scarred, bound by choices that cannot be undone. Tonight they survived. But survival is only the beginning. The sea carries them back toward Ketterdam. But the water feels heavier than when they left. The ship groans against the current, sails snapping under cold winds. Each of the crew carries silence differently. Jesper forces laughter at every chance. Too quick, too bright, until the sound curdles and dies. Wylan bends over sketches and wires, his curls shadowing a face that has begun to learn what it means to run from more than numbers. Inej sharpens her blades in the quiet. the scrape of metal steady as prayer. Matthias stays at Nina's side, watching her chest rise, watching her lips pale, as if sheer vigilance could hold her here. Nina drifts between sleep and waking, her body scorched by Jodaparem. At times her eyes blaze with power, her words tumbling too fast, too bright. At others she collapses into trembling, her heart stuttering, her body fragile as glass. When her gaze clears, it finds Matthias. She teases him softly, calls him names that once were insults, now half affection. But the fire is fading, and each day she grows weaker. Kaz never rests. He stalks the deck with maps and figures, cane striking the planks like punctuation to thoughts no one else can read. To him, the heist is already finished. The next move begins now. 30 million Krug waits with Van Eck. But so does something else. Something no contract can bind. He replays every betrayal he has ever suffered, every debt unpaid. Trust is a currency he never trades. When the skyline of Ketterdam finally rises, it feels unreal. The harbor yawns open, ships crowding like hungry gulls. The stench of spice and tar rolls over them. Familiar, almost welcome. Jesper lets out a long whistle. Home, sweet hive of corruption, but home is never safe. Van Eck greets them at the appointed dock, smile sharp as a blade, his guards already positioned. He claps his hands as if welcoming prodigal sons. "You've done it," he says smoothly. "The ice court breached, the prisoner retrieved. Ketterdam will remember this night for centuries." Kaz's eyes narrow. "The payment, of course," Van Eck says, and gestures toward the waiting barge. "Your money waits aboard, but first, a formality. I'll take the prisoner." They bring Boyul Bayer forward, though he can hardly stand. His eyes are fever bright, his body shaking with the remnants of Parem. Nina steadies him, her glare fixed on Van Eck. "He won't survive another week. You knew that." Van Eck shrugs, all false sympathy. "He only needs to survive long enough." His gaze shifts, lingering on Nina, on Inej, on the weakest points of the crew. Guards step forward. Muskets gleam. The trap snaps shut. Jesper curses under his breath, already reaching for his pistols. Matthias stiffens, torn between loyalty to the crew and the pull of his homeland's voice, whispering through Van Eck's promises. Inej melts into the shadows, knives already loose. Wylan clutches his satchel, eyes wide, heart hammering. Kaz does not flinch. He plants his cane, his voice even, calm, lethal. "You think you've won, but crows don't forget." Van Eck's smile hardens. "And debtors don't forgive. You're clever, Mr. Brekker, but you're still a boy playing at Empire. You brought me what I wanted. Now you'll leave with nothing." His men seize Inej before she can vanish, dragging her toward the barge. For the first time, Kaz's mask cracks. His eyes flash, not with fear, but with something sharper, older, rawer. "You touch her again," he says, voice low enough to freeze blood. "And I will carve the world open to bury you." But the guns are already raised. The crew is outnumbered. The money is gone, the bargain broken, their unity fractured. As the barge pulls away, carrying Inej into Van Eck's clutches, Jesper swears he will put a bullet in the merchant's heart. Wylan grips the railing until his knuckles whiten. Nina coughs blood into Matthias's hands, her smile faint but unyielding. Kaz watches the ship vanish into the harbor fog, his cane clenched so tight the wood groans. He has lost before. Family, trust, innocence, but never like this. Never with his crew, his crows, torn from him by betrayal. The sea wind howls across the deck, bitter and cold. Ketterdam's lights flicker in the distance, each one a promise, each one a threat. The heist is finished, but the war is only beginning. Kaz Brekker whispers to himself, too low for anyone else to hear. Crows don't forgive, crows don't forget, and the city, hungry and waiting, seems to whisper back, 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 seems to whisper back.